All right, so this is just We the People News. Okay, there's going to be a two-part video. This one and another one. Now I'm just going to go into codes. How the officer didn't uh, can't ask you about insurance unless you've been involved in an accident. Now that being said, this video that I'm going to be showing here in a minute is going to be due to old statutes. It may have changed, so anybody in Texas verify it. But it's interesting that it once was there, and you know this is the reason why we got to look up the statutes, because even my day and time, I just always gave my driver's license and insurance registration because I never read it. So that being said, when you see it, you will fully comprehend what it's talking about. If they haven't changed it, it still stands today. But right now, let's go with this video. And I would suggest call the judges out during this, or magistrate.
The first thing that you need to ask the judge is, do you see a man standing in front of you? And they're not going to answer at all. And then say, well, I pity you, judge, because if you don't see a man standing in front of you, then you are completely incompetent. You are mentally incompetent to deal with this court. Because if you're hearing and seeing dead people, you cannot hold the court.
What would you just actually playing that out? Let's play that out. I just want to. Sorry, guys, but we're going to end up now. I'm going down, going into this a bit more, but I think it's important. If I did that, and the judge is just refusing to answer me, or just carries on railroading, how would you handle that situation?
Well, the minute you say he's incompetent and he cannot hold the court, then it's case dismissed. They cannot continue once you've made that acquisition. They cannot continue. Simple.
So you get that out before anything, basically.
Before anything, what they're trying to do is they're trying to create the joinder with the name, because what they're asking is for the all caps name, and as soon as they call your name out and you go yes, or I am such and such, you're corresponding with that all capitals name. So first of all, before anything that they say, you say, judge, do you see a man or a woman standing in front of you? And they're not going to answer. All this rubbish with the oaths and what have you, I mean, that doesn't work. If you say, are you on your oath? They don't answer that either, because none of these judges are on their oaths unless they're in a crown court or whatever, QCs. So straight away, you've got them on the back foot. What is your date of, because they haven't given you a dictionary, when they ask you what is your date of birth, you can say something like, well, the date of birth was given to me on the day I was born. You're answering the question without answering your question. So you can't be done for contempt of.
Remember, I spoke of you can answer questions without questions. Same crap they pull on you.
So you're spinning it. So you're doing exactly what they're doing. So instead of what is your name, what is not your name? You can say that to him. What is not my name? That's a verb.
Simple. Have you done this yourself? Have you used this?
No, I've seen other people doing it, but that was what I was going to do in the court anyway. But this is how I was prepped by other guys. So
there's a guy called Mark
Kishon.
He's in Australia. I've forgotten his name. Oh, damn it. He does solutions something or other. You know what I mean? No. Anyway, the reason I forgot his last name, but the reason I'm doing that, he's done quite a lot of video footage of exactly what you just said.
Right. Okay.
He's used that in court, exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And just holds them to account to answer that question.
Absolutely.
Am I or am I not a man? And then if they confirm that, well, how is this paperwork relevant to me?
Yeah. Usually they'll just walk out of court. The judge will just get up and walk out. And when at that time you just say case dismissed. I'm the highest ranking officer in this court. Bang, case dismissed, and walk out. Just literally walk out. Because what they're doing is they're walking out to change the jurisdiction to walk back in. So what they're changing it to another law. So they can go through 3 or 4 different changes of this law without admiralty law. So, they become high priests then to walk back into court and change the jurisdiction. So before they do that, you've got to walk out of court and say dismissed. So it's all the tricks.
Which goes back into number one case. Why do they not answer when you challenge jurisdiction courts when their boss told them they must answer it? Just saying.
Okay, so we're in Texas, and I'm going to show you a document that I first got from the Republic of Texas years ago, somebody in the Republic of Texas. And as when he approaches your car is generally, I want your driver's license, your registration, and your proof of insurance. So we're going to go over these in the Texas code and have a look-see. So, number one is, are you required to have a driver's license when you travel on a public right-of-way? That's the first thing they always ask. And I should mention in this stop, he did write a ticket, although I didn't sign it, and he didn't take me to the magistrate because he told me he had to arrest me. And I wasn't down for being arrested. I was down for going to the magistrate, but I didn't want to be arrested, so he chose not to take me to the magistrate, which was my right to go and to ask. So I didn't sign a ticket, but he wrote one anyway. And one of the things he did write me for was expired driver's license. But let's look and see what the code says. Texas Transportation Code 521.001 definitions. In this chapter, driver's license means an authorization issued by the department for the operation of a motor vehicle. The term includes A, a temporary license or instruction permit, and B, an occupational license. What is an occupational license? Wouldn't that be the same thing as a CDL, a commercial driver's license? So they don't give us any definition for what occupational license means. But anyway, that's all you have is a temporary or instruction and an occupational. And then we have a little bonus for you here. It's Keith Brooks versus the state, which says, and that was the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. And it says an information charging the driving of a motor vehicle upon a public highway without a driver's license charges no offense, as there is no such license as a driver's license known to the law. So there's our Texas criminal courts stating that there is no such license as a driver's license known to the law. Then we have Frank Callis versus state. And in this one, it says the court has held there's no such license known to Texas law as a driver's license. So it looks like a terrible conflict here to me. You be the judge on that. Now let's move on to number 2. Are you required to register or accept a certificate of title for your private carriage or your consumer good? A vehicle is, or a carriage or a car or whatever you want to call it, is also named in the code as a consumer good. So if we look under Texas Transportation Code 501.004 under applicability, and this is applicability of the Certificate of Title Act. A says this chapter applies to motor vehicles owned by the state or a political subdivision of the state. This chapter does not apply to a motor vehicle while it is owned or operated by the United States. Texas Transportation Code 502.003, registration by political subdivision prohibited. A political subdivision of this state may not require an owner of a vehicle to, 1, register the vehicle. So no political subdivision, which is going to be your county or any other branch of your state, your DPS, Department of Public Safety, your transportation board, whatever it is in your state. Now, these codes, you can look them up in your state and you're going to have something similar. But let's look at number 2. Number 2, they can't require you to pay a motor vehicle registration fee. Isn't that interesting? And number 3, they can't require you to pay an occupation tax or license fee in connection with a motor vehicle. B, this section does not affect the authority of a municipality to license and regulate the use of motor vehicles for compensation within the municipal limits. Okay, so if you're using your vehicle for compensation, in other words, for hire, then you would be operating, I suppose, under an occupational or CDL license, and of course, you would be subject to some regulations. So now let's look at number 3. Do I have to provide proof of insurance at a traffic stop? Well, that one's a maybe. It depends on whether you have an accident or not, because Texas Transportation Code 601.292 provides duty to provide evidence of financial responsibility to investigating officer. A person whom this subchapter applies shall provide evidence of financial responsibility to a law enforcement officer of this state or a political subdivision of this state who is conducting an investigation of the accident. So there had to be an accident, at which time you would need to provide financial proof of responsibility. Texas Transportation Code 601.293, failure to provide evidence of financial responsibility, magistrate's inquiry and order. A person to whom this subchapter applies who fails to provide evidence under section 601.292. Now that's the code we just read, where you have to provide evidence after an accident. So a person who fails to provide that evidence under section 601.292 shall be taken before a magistrate as soon as practicable. B, the magistrate shall conduct an inquiry on the issues of negligence and liability for bodily injury, death, or property damage sustained in the accident. C, if the magistrate determines that there is a reasonable probability that a judgment will be rendered against the person for bodily injury, death, or property damage sustained in the accident, the magistrate shall order the person to provide 1, evidence of financial responsibility for the bodily injury, death, or property damage, or 2, evidence that the person is exempt from the requirement under 601.051. And D, a determination of negligence or liability under subsection C does not act as collateral estoppel on an issue in a criminal or civil adjudication arising from the accident. So right there, right off the bat, 1, 2, 3, driver's license, registration, and insurance, not required. Now, in our next video, we're going to get on to what he calls probable cause and what he calls a crime, and how he's ignorant on the law on those issues as well. So in whatever state you're in, if you will just Google these terms under your Kentucky Transportation Code driver's license. And you can pull these up in your state and have a look and see what the law actually says. Because we can clearly see here, there is no such offense, there is no such thing as a driver's license known to Texas law. We can see that they can't require me to register a vehicle or pay a vehicle registration fee, and that I don't have to provide financial responsibility evidence until there's an investigation of an accident. So this is a huge problem that we have officers on the street.
And the reason why it's written this way really is because it would be a common law nature and cause, right? There's a victim. All right. Prior to then, there's never been a victim. So the officers don't need to get all that information. They get all that information after there is a victim. And that's the reason why the lower courts expressly ignore the nature and the cause. Because they cannot give both nature and the cause